Good morning, everyone. How are you? Today is Chatting with Wisdom, and today is December 1st. Can you believe that we are already in December? This is insane. So, which means that we only have a few Chatting with Wisdom sessions left in the year 2021. We were then going to be moving into our next season starting January, but we do have a few beautiful guests that we're going to be sharing with. So today we're going to be talking about Shelley Bosworth. And so Shelley is a qualified personal performance life coach specializing in mindset and confidence for female entrepreneurs who are ready to get out of their own way and up level their life and or their business. Following a successful 25-year corporate career, Shelley turned 40, faced a health scare and significant personal loss, and decided to change her path. I love how that happens. She is on a mission to empower and inspire ambitious women who are exhausted by life that can do or have exactly what they secretly dream of, guilt-free and confidently. Let's try this again. We were just talking about my reading skills sometimes. So they will need to lift the lid on those limiting beliefs and take action. Practical, straight talking, and a little woo curious. She is your best friend in your back pocket. Welcome.
That's me.
How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I am good, thank you very much. And how are you?
I'm great when I don't have to read.
Bless you.
So this is awesome. And I love the topic that you've chosen today. So lifting the lid on your limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've been talking a lot about with my clients recently, simply because we get stuck in okay, well, who says, right? So, and that's my famous new statement that my clients just kind of laugh when they start talking. They're like, and I'm like, so who says? And they're like, okay. So now when it comes out of their mouth, they're like, who says?
I love it when that happens. I love it when your clients start quoting back before you've even asked the question. They're there for you because they know what's coming. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's great. So tell me a little bit more about you. So I love how you got to that platform. So that at the age of 40, when you're just this awakening of where life needs to go.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously you described it there really briefly. I had a pretty standard societal upbringing, work hard at school, do well in your exams, go out, get a good job with a good benefits package, of course. My dad, I've definitely got the strong work ethic from my father, and that was the path I took. It was really the only path I understood and knew. That's what we were surrounded by. And I had big ambitions, big goals. I was absolutely going to climb the ladder and get to the top. Didn't quite get to the top, but that's part of the story, really. So off I went and worked hard, edged on burnout a few times, climbed that corporate ladder, experienced some of the things I later discovered in my coaching life, some of the labels, the imposter syndrome, got a bit of sabotage in there. I worked in quite a male-dominated world. That's where the straight talking comes from. But yeah, and I wasn't unhappy. I've always said this. So I wasn't unhappy in my corporate career. What actually happened for me, really simply, so I met my husband at 38 years young. I wasn't going to get married, you see. So I was very busy building my career. So I wasn't getting married. I wasn't having any of that stuff. And then met my husband and we married. And as I said in my bio, so I turned 40. And literally within 3 months of turning 40, I had a health scare. And it was quite a serious health scare at the time. I'm pleased to say it didn't turn out to be very, very serious, but it was the C word before COVID existed. So, so we had that little scare. And that was a little bit of a, hang on, girl, you're not as indestructible as you think. And I guess it was the first moment where I started to think about how hard I worked, how many hours I worked, and was I looking after myself? So that was probably that first trigger. Alongside that, my father-in-law was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at the age of 62, which is a very young age for that obviously to happen. Mm-hmm. Sadly, within 3 years, we said goodbye to him. And in that period of time watching someone who I looked up to, who had run his own business, who had achieved so much, lose control of his life at such a young age.
Yeah.
Really, I turned 40, remember? So, we all know the turning 40 piece can start us asking lots of questions anyway. Really got me like, hang on a second, another 20 years of this, and I've had the health scare. Is that what I want? Life is so short. Life is so precious. And so that was where the questions really started in that 3-year period. And I worked with a coach. So I worked with a coach and started to understand a little bit more about what had perhaps been going on for me. There was a repeating pattern in my corporate career, and I started to delve a bit deeper. And because of my very curious nature, outside of my coaching, I started reading more stuff. Basically came home one day and said, I want to do that. I want to be a coach. I don't want to just have a coach. I want to be a coach. And my husband very supportively, yes, darling. Okay. And you don't just say yes, darling, and think it'll go away to Shelley. So carried on researching, and then I announced I'm doing it. So, and I'm kind of accelerating the story, but essentially I went out and I sought a training academy that I wanted to do it properly. I wanted to learn. There was a credibility piece. I wanted to do that properly. And so I did that alongside my corporate role. And this was in the final year of my father-in-law's illness. So I trained, I carried on working ridiculous hours. I qualified as a coach. In the final 3 months of me coaching, training, my father-in-law had passed away. And then my mother-in-law, just a few months after my father-in-law passed away, was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And sadly, we lost her within 3 months. So we said goodbye to both of my in-laws, who, and I know many wives don't say this, I had an incredible relationship with my in-laws. And my mother-in-law was genuinely a second mother to me. And so it's my husband's story to tell, but it hit me hard too.
Yeah.
And actually I'd qualified by this point, and my mother-in-law had run her own business. So she was a huge in the background, like, come on, do this, you should do this. And so it was almost a little bit of an honor to her. I was like, I've got to do more with this than saying I'm going to, but where am I really going? So I qualified, I set up my business on the side, but of course I carried on working in corporate, side hustle, but you can't really go all in on something. So I qualified in 2019, in the summer of 2019. I set my business up straight away. I started practicing privately. And then my husband in September 2019 said, I think you should leave. I think you should leave your job. I think you should go for it. If we haven't learned from the last couple of years how short life is, then we're never going to. What are you waiting for? Who says you can't? Quoting back at me. And so, suddenly I had permission. And that, I don't mean that in the I had permission from, but actually there were no more excuses. Yeah. So that was quite a scary moment. But I did. I resigned from my my corporate role at the time. My boss was very supportive. And I left my corporate life in December 2019. I was ready for a new year, a new decade, a new path forward. Now, we all know what happened in 2020, and it was quite a year to be launching yourself full on into your business. But I have absolutely no regrets. I often say I'm glad I did not know in December of 2019 what was coming around the corner, because if I had, I would not have done what I do now, and I have no regrets in that respect. Yeah. For me, the biggest part of that, and when I started out, I thought I would simply coach women who were in their corporate careers and wanted to get out, because that's what I'd just done. But actually, what became really obvious really quickly was that this deep curiosity I had for the mindset and limiting beliefs, of which I discovered I had a ton of, was just I couldn't leave it alone. I had to know more. I had to understand more. And so that path opened up very naturally for me. The more people I worked with, the more I helped them identify limiting beliefs, and it's become my passion project, if you like. So yes, I work with women in business, largely women in their own businesses. I do work with women in other businesses. I have a corporate background, so there's obviously an affinity there. But it always comes back to what's really holding you back, really lifting that lid and working out what's your story, and do you want that to be your story? So I rewrote my story. I'm writing my story now. Who knows what the next few chapters will look like? But I have no intention of closing the book. So there's me.
Well, and I love that, right? So, and because your story is so much like everyone else's, in like, so not necessarily all the steps, but like for the most part, right? Like it is so much like a lot of our stories of what do you want in life, right? So, and again, that's another one of those statements that I use with my clients all the time. So then what do you want, right? So if that's not what you want, then what do you want? And so, and one of the other statements that I make often is, yeah, it's not my quote. However, it is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again,
Yeah.
expecting a different result. And a lot of it comes back to our limiting beliefs, right? Well, I have to tolerate somebody being rude and disrespectful to me because that's my spouse, or I have to because it's my sister, or it's my, right? So like you've got all these limiting beliefs of like, well, it's my boss, so I have to do what my boss tells me, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think that I mean, all these labels, there's so many now, aren't there? Limited beliefs, imposter syndrome, you know, and they can be very heavy. And everything you just said, absolutely. Those limiting beliefs, you know, the I have tos, I don't have choices. Interestingly, I realized, and this was kind of last year, that even down to, I was carrying a limiting belief about being an entrepreneur. So in my head, I didn't know people that ran their own businesses. And I certainly didn't know, I'm going to go inverted commas for a second, entrepreneurs. Because because in the world I grew up in, so I grew up in a little village in Essex in the UK, about 45 minutes outside of London. In my world, in my head, somewhere along the line, an entrepreneur, this is what I believed an entrepreneur to be, was American, first of all, okay? Very clearly, because it was quite an Americanism word for us growing up. So they were American. They were already rich and successful, and they probably had some crazy brilliant idea for some kind of product or something. Because of course, when you're growing up, you see, you know, the Richard Bransons of the world, the Jeff Bezos of the world. You know, that for me was an entrepreneur. I never put myself even in the vicinity of the word, let alone the people. So actually I had this huge obstacle to get over, and that's a limiting belief, because my beliefs and understanding of what entrepreneurialism, can't even say the word, was so far from anything I thought I could be. I was already starting out with well, I'm just this woman giving it a go. I'm just, and that's the really interesting spin when you start to understand limiting beliefs and really look at the stories, the things you've learned. My limiting belief was that people like me just worked hard in a corporate position. You know, they might get to a certain level where they worked really hard to get paid by somebody else, good benefits package. That's what you do. That, you know, that in itself was a limiting belief, because that's what I believed the path was for people like me. It's once you get into it, we've all got them. We've got lifetime trolley suitcases of limited beliefs that we're carrying around with us. And it's so incredibly interesting once you start to identify them and see what you can do with that.
So, and it's really interesting how we perceive these things. And so like I've worked in mental health for a number of years. And so I've come across these limiting beliefs on a lot of different levels. And so it just allows us to be able to, like, when we put it at the forefront and we actually see what it is that's going on and what it is that's happening, right? So so I know that there's been like even in my own career, it's like I've worked hard, I've done all the different things that I need to, and COVID has definitely set me back and knocked me on my keister, trying to figure out how am I going to do all these things, because I had just opened up a wellness center in our small community, and we were just getting things kind of rolling, and then everything just come to a halt, and it was like, okay, now what do we do? And so for the last 2 years, almost 2 years, it's been like, what do we do? How are we going to move forward? What is it that's going to happen? And so it's like kind of fly by the seat of our pants, not knowing what it is, and those limiting beliefs of like the limiting beliefs that small businesses can't make it doesn't mean that I am like hugely successful or that everything is going exactly the way that it needs to. But if I continue to persevere, I can do this, right? So, and being able to remind myself that I can do this and we will get through this, and it's not going to last forever.
It can't, it won't, it can't, it's not going to. We must remember to ourselves. But what I loved in there as well is actually that lovely word, successful. What is successful?
Yeah.
because what your definition and my definition could be very different, and there's so much pressure, isn't there?
Yes.
So straight away we're putting this expectation on our shoulders, and then of course potentially telling ourselves, well, I'm not successful, or I can't be successful. To your very point about those limiting beliefs, again, we place another limiting belief upon ourselves. Well done, by the way, because you are still going, you're still doing brilliantly. we are coming out the other side, right?
We are coming out the other side. So
as someone who started this journey, not with no intention of being totally virtual for like the first couple of years, and had to, to listen to everyone telling me I should pivot. I was like, pivot? I haven't got a business to pivot yet. I've only just started.
And it really is. And that's one of the things, like, so we're talking about entrepreneurs and we're talking about women in business, but it's like, we've all had to pivot. So women who've actually gone back to working from home, like I know that when my children were little and I had a job that I had an office-based, it was a part-time job. It was office-based and like home office-based. And because I had to travel across our district, we have a very large district. And so there was like no set place that I actually worked. So it was just from my living room, and during summertime, or when the kids were on March break, or when they were on holidays, like me trying to get things done, or if they were homesick. There was like so many things that I needed to try and manage. And I only worked part-time. And so for everybody who had to shift and be working from home and having to adjust and doing all the things, plus having to do homeschooling with the kids and all those things that we've had to adjust and adapt to, have really created a higher level of resiliency, and have really allowed us to be able to have that opportunity for us to be able to challenge those limited beliefs and be able to like push the envelope a little.
The last, oh gosh, we're nearly 2 years down, aren't we? But let's say 18 months and not give it the whole 2 years yet. But you're so right. As tough as I know the last 18 months have been for everybody in whatever ways they have. It's not, everybody's got their story and their experience of the last 18 months. But what I hope that everybody can take out of this, and I think there's some learnings for everyone, but I also hope that people can come out and really recognize how resilient they are. And I was just writing an email to my list this morning, actually, on this very subject, and saying, I know we all came into this year just with this hope it was going to be better than 2020, and I think it has been. I think it's brought challenges we didn't expect, but now is the time to really stop and take a moment to reflect and acknowledge what you have achieved. And even if that achievement is just getting through, you've done that and got through. And I'm sure there's so much more in the achievements list, because this could be the 18 months of evidence. I'm always talking about, where's the evidence? What's the truth of this situation? This could be the evidence we're pulling on for years to come when we're trying to push through our comfort zones.
Yeah,
this has got to be the biggest smash out of our comfort zones anyone's experienced in the last 18 months. So I really hope that we can all use this, to your very point, to really remind ourselves how resilient we are and what we can do when we have to. And I know that may have been tough for some people. So anyone that is watching this and thinking, my heart goes out to anyone. I've had a relatively easy, not easy, but not experienced some of the challenges that some have, and I'm always very cognizant of that.
And that's one of the things that that we do have to remember, is that there's always that two sides of the coin, and it also depends on how we're looking at it as well, right? So I have somebody who. And I think that it's absolutely phenomenal how she was able to, so not only did she wait until, she didn't purposely wait, but she waited. She was just this year, she's launched a new business.
Amazing.
And recently, so most recently for us, our case levels have actually increased within our community. So there's been lots of things, and she's still plugging away, and she's still doing some of the things that, and I honor her for being able to do that. I don't know that I would have even thought about doing that, and thought that would be something that I could try and manage at this point, simply because there's just so much to navigate in this particular time, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I started my journey just before, and I started my journey kind of before I left corporate. I knew what I was doing. I knew I was moving. But interestingly, so my husband was made redundant at the height of the pandemic in 2020. So we went from, two corporate business and two corporate roles. I'd left. We did, all sensible, all the plans in place, all the little buffer in the background. Pandemic hits, no, we're good, we're all right. And then my husband was made redundant. And in terms of resilience and actually old stories coming up as well, I was like, I'm ready. I'm on the phone. I'm calling my old boss.
I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Help me. And it would have been, probably would have been easier, maybe. Certainly could have been an easy route to take. But I'd put, you think about that resilience and actually what you've already gone through. I remember actually having that conversation with my husband, and again, the two of us discussing how much had already gone in to get to this stage. And did I really want to walk away from that, as hard as it was at that moment in time? So yeah, I think everybody's got the opportunity to really reflect and give themselves a damn big pat on the back right now for what we've come through and the strength we've all shown in various different ways. Starting a business in the middle of a pandemic, literally in the middle of it, that is kudos to that person.
Well, like I said, I am always mesmerized by, and one of the things that I often hear is like, she'll make statements like, "Oh, but it's so slow." It's like, "But you started a business."
Well, and I think we forget, you don't know what you don't know, do you, when you come into starting a business? And I was actually talking to a client a few weeks ago who is in the first stages of her business, and she has a corporate background. And actually, the conversation went very much down the line. And sometimes we need to remember that it took you 20 years in your corporate background, in your corporate career, to get to here. And actually, you've been doing what you're doing now for 6 months, and you are seeming to put the expectation on your shoulders of being at the level that you were after 20 years.
Yes.
Context. Now, that's not helped by, we're surrounded by social media and stories and imagery of everybody succeeding. There's that word again. So successful. They're 6, 7, 8-figure months, and they did it overnight. The overnight successes that were really years in the making. We've got so much external stimulus, which is a blessing and a curse. We wouldn't be without social media. Look at us now. We met through social media. Thank God, it's enabling us to do this. But we have to be able to understand when it's not serving us as well, and when we've just got to get some perspective on things for our own sanity, quite frankly. And to be able to move ourselves forward.
And it really is, and I love how that you've pointed that out, is that it's years in the making, right? So same as like using quitting smoking, for example. I worked in at one point I had a contract with working with people in smoking cessation. And that was one of the things. It's like, yo, that person quit overnight. And like, I want to be able to be like that person. It's like, okay, let's go back and talk to that person, because I can guarantee you that this person has attempted several times or had thought about attempting several times, or like there's lots of things leading up to that, to that step of like, it wasn't just I woke up this morning and said, okay, I'm done. It was because there's lots of things that have led to that. Right. So, and so that was one of the things that and so then I would often hear, so do you smoke? Well, it doesn't matter if I do or not. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that it wasn't just overnight. Right. So like, that's not the way that it works, is that we have all these different things. So when we are thinking about things and what it is that we're doing. And so I have a young girl who is, she had been considering her business for some time. And so I have, so there's something, I have a little shop here in the wellness center. And so when she was here, she happened to come across something that triggered her into like, hey, that particular thing is named as the business name that I had like years ago, that because she had these ideas. And so I'm not sure how far that she's actually going to move forward at this point, but it was like that motivation of like, well, maybe, and that was again, that limiting belief. And she's like, well, that's what I wanted to do. Well, then why don't you? Well, because and it's like, what? Right?
We were. I was talking. I have a mastermind group, and last night we were talking about overthinking, and that wonderful piece around. And it all comes back into limiting beliefs. So every conversation it always comes back to. So we were talking about overthinking last night, and how we never overthink the good stuff. So how often do we actually sit and go, I mean, it could just be so amazing, couldn't it? I mean, it
Yeah.
could actually work out. Imagine if it worked out and go on and but oh my God, aren't we good at talking ourselves into all kinds of drama about what is going to happen? We become mind readers, future
We've got fortune teller.
crystal balls. That's it. That's the word. I mean, we can write out the entire story of the next 2 years if I take this one action right now. It is absolutely incredible, and it's all rooted, of course. So much of it is rooted in what's already happened and experiences and beliefs that we've already got, which we don't even realise are tapping into us. I was saying to someone last week, 4 years ago, maybe 5 now, I hadn't even heard of limiting beliefs. And I know that the statement, the very label itself, it's a fairly obvious, does what it says on the tin, but I hadn't heard of them. I didn't understand what a limiting belief was, and certainly didn't understand the impact of it. Now, there is a little bit of a danger zone. Once you open that can, once you lift that lid, there's no getting away. But my gosh, it can be empowering. It can be a bit frustrating when you're like, oh my God, there's another one. But once you've got that awareness, you can make the decision to do something about it. But that's where we got into overthinking last night, in that awareness is great, but it's not enough on its own. You have to take the second step, which is to make that decision to do something differently. And all the questions you've used already, well, who's saying that? What's the worst that can happen? Well, how likely is that to happen? How true is what you're saying? But like, how actually true is what you're saying? It's just incredible once you lift that lid. Blessing and curse, she says, but just it's years of work. And I think that's the other piece again. Quite often people think, well, I've got some limited beliefs, I just need to fix them. It's not a switch. It doesn't work like that. None of this is the work that you do, the work that I do. I'd love to be able to say I have a magic wand and I can, fix you really quickly, but it just doesn't work like this. This is ongoing work. And we were talking before we came on live about being really real. One of the most real things about me is I'm always saying to my audience, my clients, I have not got it all sorted. I'm learning all the time. I am human. I have good days. I have bad days. I have days where there is negative self-talk running a marathon in here. But the difference is I can see it for what it is now, and I know to employ the right tactics. But I don't, no one stops those voices. No one stops all of that. And that's not what the work I do is about. It's about helping you see it for what it is and have the confidence to make a decision to do something differently.
And I love that, right? So it's about having the confidence and building that confidence of being able to just take that step and taking that action.
Yeah.
Because I think that makes a huge difference, right? Because like you said, we get wrapped up in our head and we get stuck with not being able to move forward in whatever the decision is that we have going on. But if we can just simply change the way that we're looking at the problem, or change the way that we're actually seeing the situation that we're in right now. And because again, when we look back, chances are there's been a lot of things that we've, like, all those obstacles that we've overcome in order for us to be able to get to where we are right now. And so, and some people have more obstacles than others. And unfortunately, like, there's like, it's the pick of the draw, right? It's not because anybody's better or worse than the other. It just simply is that you have those, somebody just has, and it just seems that, and I do know some people that every time you turn around, there's another tragedy or there's another major thing that's going on in their life. But it's, how do they keep moving forward? What is it that they keep doing? How are they going to keep plugging away?
You quoted that. I love the Albert Einstein quote, by the way. And actually the one that's going, I don't know who said this, and I may even slightly incorrectly quote because it's going through my mind and I don't know it perfectly, but there is a quote along the lines of, I've come through 100% of my worst days so far. And actually, I know that's not the nicest of quotes, but when we talk about that resilience that you mentioned earlier, if you're here and you're talking, and I'm to anybody that's facing obstacle after obstacle, I know I've had times when I felt like I'm in that place, genuinely like, come on, there can't be anything more you're going to throw at me. Oh, just a global pandemic. But actually, as I sit here now thinking about that quote, I'm here. I've come through 100% of my worst days. And yes, they've been tough. And I'm not sitting here with a great big smile going, it's all fantastic. I've learned from them. And at times I've wanted it just to stop. But I've come through 100% of them. And therefore I can draw from that. And that decision making becomes about, can I choose to see something else there now that I've moved forward? Can I choose to see something else that I can learn from it, that the strength that I had, and that can be a positive for us. And I know that takes a lot of work to get there. Again, I never
And it really
downplay
does.
people's situations.
And it really does. And this time of the year, so like moving into December, as much as like I'm like, oh my God, we're into December. This time of the year is one of those most challenging months for most people. And so, and I have people that say, well, I don't even celebrate Christmas. But even for those who do not celebrate Christmas, there's still all the hustle and bustle. There's all the external stress that's going on with everything else. And now we add the pandemic on top of that. But we've got all these different things that are happening that are really causing us to have to try and figure out and navigate whatever it is that's going on and how we're going to navigate. And so, so this month, be gentle with yourself. Like I want to remind people to be gentle with yourself during this month.
100%. It's like your mind reading. I've just written a blog this week. It's not been published yet, but I don't know. It's really interesting because, and I'm sensing from what you're saying that perhaps it's the same where you are. Certainly here in the UK at the moment, there feels like there's this additional pressure this year. It's almost like we're trying to make up for the lost Christmas of last year. So there's this real there's been a bit of a heavy weight, I think, and actually there's a bit of a going all out on Christmas, which, everyone do what you want to do. But actually, just this morning, I wrote a snippet in this blog, which is what made me think of it, around, don't forget you in all of this hustle and bustle. I don't have children. My husband and I, we made that decision. So Christmas is quite a quiet affair for us. I have a big family that I have lots of nieces and nephews, but Christmas Day, everybody stays in their families. And actually, we quite often get the pressure might be the wrong word, but we'll get a lot of question around, well, why don't you make a big deal about Christmas? Well, because we don't have children, and Christmas is about the kids, isn't it? It's about the families. And I love seeing my family and my nieces and nephews, but everybody's got their own little bit of pressure that comes with this time of year. And this year particularly, it does feel like there's a bit of added pressure. And so I absolutely reiterate what you just said. Take a little bit of pressure off yourself if you can. Find some time for you in all of that. And maybe, there's a really great learning about this time last year, and forgive me for not knowing exactly the situation in your part of the world this time last year, but I know here we just wanted to be with our friends and family. We weren't interested in the presents. All we wanted to do was be with our friends and family. And I'd never cast aspersions, but perhaps somewhere along the line we're losing sight of that a little bit with all the pressure that's mounting this year. December is a heavy month for many. Let's not put more on our shoulders than we need to.
And that's one of the reasons why every year, and I've been doing it for, I think it's my 4th year. So this will be my 4th year, I believe, is that every day on Christmas Day, like we don't do a big thing about Christmas. So like my Christmas excitement is being able to have brunch with my children. And we do that already at other times of the year. Like that's not a big deal. Just brunch is like everybody gets to choose. They're like Christmas brunches, everybody gets to choose. And so like a smorgasbord of everything. So if somebody wants pancakes, then I make a little bit of pancakes. If somebody wants French toast, then I'm making French toast. Whatever those little pieces.
I'm coming to you for Christmas.
And it's like I get a list. Who wants what this year? And so and that's how I do that. And so like that's but I don't really care if it's on which day it is. It really doesn't make a difference to me. It's just during the Christmas holiday, being able to have that one time where we get to come together and have that. And so on Christmas Day is that I always open up a Zoom call in the afternoon. And so simply because there are so many people that are alone on Christmas Day for whatever reason, and last year specifically because of isolation. And it's like, so then just come and join me, right? So just come and join me. And so when I turned 50 was in 2020. And so it was like, and that was at the beginning of the pandemic. So I'm not sure when you guys got locked down, but we got locked down near the end of March. So like kind of like in the last March. So, and it was like, okay, so now, and my birthday is April 1st. So like, here I am, my 50th birthday, and I'm all alone. So then I jumped on a call. Like I jumped on a live and said, hey, who wants to join me for my birthday? Like today's my birthday and I'm going to come and celebrate with all of you. Like I still had my husband and my son lived in the apartment behind in the building. And so I still had a little bit of contact, but like it was my 50th. Right. So it was supposed to be bigger than sitting behind a camera.
I hope you're going to make up for it at some point. Have you made up for it this year?
No, not yet.
You are owed a party. You are owed a party.
No, it'll come. It'll happen. But it's just about being able to have that connection and finding ways of us being able to have those connections. And it doesn't have to be anything huge, but and again, it goes back to those limiting beliefs, right? So like we have to have all these presents for the kids. Why? Right? We have to have
all these story come from.
Right. So like it's come back together, like coming back together. And like I said, for me, it's just being able to spend that time. And not that I don't want to spend time with anyone else in the external family, but it's like, but they all do their own thing. And that's okay with me. And from the time that my kids have been little, it's like just about my kids. And so like that's, and now that they're adults, and at some point I'm going to have grandchildren. And so then it'll be all about like, what's in the best interest. And it's just all coming together and having this tradition. Right?
The best bit, and the best bit about this is actually what you're saying is, we're creating our own tradition. We're creating what we want it to be. And again, bring that back to limiting beliefs. That's the key with limiting beliefs. The very key here is beliefs are just a thought. They're a thought that you've decided are your truth, but you get to decide. So actually you can write your new story. 42, started her own business, decided after a 25-year, you get to write your story. And that can be scary. You get to write your traditions. You get to decide how you want to and don't get me wrong, I know we've all got external factors we have to, navigate within that. I know it's not quite as simple as I'm saying, but we can start to change the narrative. We can change the narrative of our story. And that comes straight back to the limiting beliefs piece. We don't have to live by the beliefs and the stories we've had forever. We can pick up the pen and start again.
I love that. And so I can't believe that we are almost 40 minutes in.
I know.
So I want to give you the opportunity at this point to share. Is there anything that you offer that people that you think that people might be interested in, or that you would like to be able to share with people?
Yeah, so thank you again for having me. And I can't believe we've chatted for 40 minutes. That's what happens when you have aligned thoughts and you're on the same page. It's just been absolutely wonderful to chat to you. If you are interested in kind of following a bit more, hearing a bit more about what I've got to say, I've got a free Facebook group. I'll say it slowly because it's one of those you have to put your teeth in for. So it's called The Successful Ladies Escape Lounge. It kind of does what it says on the tin. So it's all about women in business, successful ladies. Okay, I don't put a label on what success is. You do that for you, but it's an escape lounge. It's absolutely about positivity, support, and like-minded women. And of course, I'm there challenging us to really think about our mindset and how we can leverage our mindset to move us forward. So that's my free Facebook group. In terms of me, I'm very easy to find. You can find me on the socials at Shelley Bosworth Coaching. I'm on Instagram most days. And I do, if you're interested in exploring more this mindset piece, I do run a mastermind. It's called the Successful Ladies Mindset Mastermind. If you ever wanted to find out more, just come and find me, reach out, and I can absolutely share a bit more detail. But the best place to find me is in my free Facebook group. Thank you for letting me share that. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. So I'm hoping that I've got the right one. It looks like it's the right one.
It is the only one called that, which is why I go slowly to say it.
Okay, well, I've got it. And so I've shared the link inside the description, or inside the chat for anybody who is catching this live or on the replay on Facebook and on YouTube. However, this will be on the podcasting sites as well. And so then, which means that because it's going to be uploaded there. And so for anybody who's catching this in the podcasting sites, just go back and have a listen. So it's the Successful Ladies Mindset Mastermind is what you're going to be searching for. But so this is incredible. And thank you so much. And so is there anything else that you wanted to share in terms of lifting the lid on your limiting beliefs that we haven't yet touched on that you?
Do you know what? All I want to say to everybody is you're not alone if you've got some limiting beliefs. Okay. You're not odd. You're not weird. We've all got them. Just some people don't even realize it, and question them. Just, if you are telling yourself you can't, you're not able to, you'll never be able to, just ask yourself the question of, is that really true? And actually, what could you do if you just let go of that and rewrote your own story? Because I believe that we can all be, do, and have the things we secretly want to. So go for it.
So thank you so much, Shelley.
Thank you.
And thanks again, everybody. And I will see you guys next week for another Chatting with Wisdom.
Thank you.